Taryn, how are you?
Hey, Tori, I'm doing great, thanks. Welcome. This is Healing with Traveling Treasures, and we're very excited to have a special guest with us today. This is our friend Shannon, who we've known since high school, and we're very, very excited to have Shannon with us. Shannon, welcome, and thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Thanks, ladies. Correction, junior high, but who's counting how old we are? Whoops.
Junior high. That's so fun. Well, yeah, so we've known you for a really long time.
Yeah.
So we brought you on the show today because you have so many exciting adventures to tell us about, and we're so excited that we're going to get to talk to you about your time in the South Pole. We're going to get to talk to you about your time in New Zealand and about Baghdad and lots of wonderful places. So we are traveling treasures. We love traveling, and we are so amazed by all the things that you've done in your lifetime. We wanted to give you a chance to tell your story. So first of all, we wanted to start out with what is your earliest memory?
That's a really tough one considering I have a terrible memory, so you guys are really challenging me. But one of my fond memories is when my parents moved to Niwot. I think I moved when I was 2.5 or 3. We had my brother had his first birthday there, I believe, and just some memories of just sitting on boxes in our 70s linoleum kitchen and just getting to unpack and having a great foundation for our childhood growing up in a great place at a great time. As you guys know, we really grew up at a really good time and all of the connections that we've been able to make through all the years.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother and then I have 2 older sisters. So I'm kind of in the middle as a fourth child.
Oh, cool. I didn't know about your older siblings. I knew about your brother.
Yes, my brother was about 18 months younger than me. So, but yeah, it's nice to have siblings. I'm sure you all know when you have niece and nephews, which is super nice. Keeps me very busy since I don't have children. So I am pretty blessed to have siblings that have children because I don't.
Very
That's
good.
awesome.
What
My
did you want to
nephew.
be when you grew up?
That was also testing my memory. I did want to be a journalist traveling overseas. I always had the travel bug, but I'm a news junkie from very early on. I remember 5th grade, I used to watch Barbara Walters and Charmin. You guys know Charmin. I think I would be teased because I would probably rather watch some of those Dateline news shows before going out. But yeah, news is still a passion for me. What's happening, international relations, that was my minor in college. So I probably would still stick to journalism.
What kind of car did you drive in high school?
I drove a Volvo, very, you know, not as modern and fancy as some of the other cars in my neighborhood. And then we had a Eddie Bauer, Eddie Bauer Bronco. I'm not quite sure, but it was a lot of fun too. But yeah, a Volvo was pretty safe,
Yeah.
practical for my parents. So very safe in the snow. It was a tank.
It
Did you ever
was.
name it?
My sister named hers. I probably won't repeat that. I'm not sure she would appreciate that, but I was just happy to have transportation.
Amen, man. We all were. Any
Yes,
any wheels were good wheels, right? As long as they like
exactly.
started and it rolled and you could put a friend in the back, like you were
Yep.
good to go,
Yes,
right? That's all you
very
needed.
true.
Yeah.
So how did
Tell us how you ended up in Antarctica.
So I had bought my house right before September 11th, and then there was a layoff not long after that. So I was looking for jobs, and I found one on Craigslist to work in Antarctica. But unfortunately, it was all about timing. But I ended up getting an HR in 1999, and years later, there was an opportunity. I had more HR experience. So then I reapplied. And then in February of 2011, I was selected to winter at South Pole for 9 months with a lot more HR experience from when I first applied back in the day in 2000.
what were all of your responsibilities in Antarctica?
So I'd like to call it adult daycare. When you do HR, it's kind of an umbrella of all kinds of things. So really, you're just there to try to make sure people feel settled, helping with onboarding, payroll questions, benefits, employee relations, investigations, trainings, you try to be the peacekeeper. You try to also support your leaders there. So you kind of play an interesting role. But when you live and work in the same environment, it's not like you can go home at the end of the day, and just be done. You have to still see the same people. So if there's conflict, that can also create certain challenges. So really dealing with conflict constructively it's really important. But when you're all isolated in an environment, again, everybody deals with isolation differently, and you don't really know how you're going to deal until you get there. And then you have, moments of darkness. And so not everybody necessarily handles that well. And then when you have alcohol available that you can purchase, that can also be challenging just because people sometimes don't necessarily manage alcohol, or if they have, issues with alcohol, that is not the place that you want to be.
I could imagine. Yeah.
I wanted to go ahead and share some of these wonderful pictures that you shared with us. So let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick, and I'll have you tell us some about what we're looking at here. These were super exciting to me to see.
Yeah.
Okay, so, first of all, we need to go back to this topic for a moment. You helped to organize our 30th high school reunion.
Yes, that was super fun last September. That was a great picture. Obviously, our fellow comrade Abe shows up, and you can see our reaction. So that's a great picture.
He
I
was
love that picture.
he
That was so
almost didn't make it to the picture, but he got there just in time, just in the nick of time to join us. So here we are just posing. I think we were the
That's
prettiest class,
yeah.
like come on, look at us. We're all
Heck
50 years
yeah.
old,
Yes,
and we
very
look
true.
pretty good for a
You
bunch
can't
of
be that old.
50-year-olds.
Yes, time goes way too quick.
It
It
does, doesn't
does.
it? It's insane.
But we
Hard
were
to
so
believe.
incredibly grateful to you for putting this together, guys. If you
Yeah.
have not been to your 30th high school reunion, please consider going because it was a riot. We had
Absolutely.
so much fun reconnecting with people that knew us from before life happened to us. We had such a good time. So Shannon, thank you for
Yeah,
kicking
well,
this
it was
off.
a collaborative effort. Obviously, Stacy, a big part of the puzzle, but it's just a good way to connect. It's hard to believe that it's been that long, but we
Right.
all grew up in a pretty special place. And thinking about when we grew up, also, we didn't have the cell phones. We didn't have a lot of things that I think actually make it even more
Thank
special when you
God.
think about it.
Yeah, we're kind of grateful for that. It was a
Oh
different
yeah,
time.
yeah. I love the time that we grew up,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
and I'm so grateful for you to put that together too. It was so much fun, and you guys did an absolutely wonderful job.
Thank you. It was great when people show up. I know we have people that live out of town. So
Mhm.
it's nice when everybody makes the effort, but we'll have to do that more often.
Yeah.
Amen. So tell us about this picture. What's going on here?
So that was my family threw me a going away party in January of 2011. And so that was just part of an ice sculpture that my sister and brother planned a party. I had an ice luge, which was super fun. So it was just kind of everybody was super excited. Obviously, that I would be gone for 9 months, didn't know what to expect. A big deal, but it was at the same time super exciting. So that was just kind of a really fun party, and I definitely appreciate them doing a nice kickoff.
That's
That's a
so
really
cool.
cool ice sculpture.
Yes,
What's
very
happening
timely.
here?
So that was right when I was in Christchurch, New Zealand. So to get to McMurdo, McMurdo is one of 3 U.S. bases managed by the National Science Foundation. So our largest is McMurdo. So in order to get to McMurdo, you have to fly from the U.S. and then you get to Christchurch, New Zealand. From there, you get your extreme cold weather gear. We call that ECW. And then most of us, depending on the time of year, obviously the beginning of summer kicks things off quite a bit. So we have bigger transportation. So this is a C-17. So this transported us from Christchurch, New Zealand, all the way to McMurdo. I believe it's about a 5 to 6 hour flight. But it's pretty amazing. I've never been on a military plane. I have since then. Pretty awesome opportunity. If you've never experienced it, it's pretty unique. But yeah, so the U.S. Air Force is basically our muscle. Big shout out to our military. I'm always a big supporter. But yes, we have some very capable pilots and crew that fly us safely there, along with lots of cargo. for the incoming season, lots of passengers. So, yep. So now I'm in Christchurch getting ready to get on the plane. So you can see I have my extreme cold weather gear, which you have to wear when you travel to Antarctica, because obviously when you arrive, it's very cold. So yeah, so that was just pretty exciting to just say, hey, this is part of the first step of finally getting there.
That's quite a plane. How many people were on this flight? Do you
Oh
know?
my goodness. I don't even remember. I probably like 50, 60, and I'm sure my numbers are wrong. That was back in 2011, but we also bring a lot of cargo. Sometimes, there's big tanks of helium. There might be a fire truck, but we also have a vessel that travels every year from Port Hueneme, California, that actually sails and travels to New Zealand in January to bring, supplies for the station for the year, including fuel. So this passenger was mostly the passenger plane start bringing people in for the season during our austral summer, which kicks off the beginning of October.
It is.
So that's just me, just being a part of the cockpit crew, just getting to tour the plane as a first time newbie. It is exciting. I wasn't afraid to take my camera or, get pictures. I'm sure I was pretty annoying for all the people that return every year, but, it is a pretty exciting experience. Even now, if I go back, I've been, I believe, 7 times, and it's still exciting every time I go. Back when I used to support the program. But yeah, that was just me kind of getting more of a tour.
That is really exciting.
Yes.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty awesome. Takes a lot of travel to get there, but it's worth it. Then when you arrive in McMurdo, everybody's tired. Usually you have to get up very early to arrive to get checked in. And then this is Ivan the Terrabus. I believe Ivan is now retired. Ivan is no longer working. But yeah, this is part of the transportation when you land basically on the sea ice, which is pretty awesome. And then that's part of your transportation. There's other vans that can, you load up with your gear, your luggage, and that takes you into town. So it might be like a 30-minute plus ride on the ice shelf. I was able to see penguins for the first time, which was pretty cool. But yeah, you get some scenery and the cold hits you. Obviously, Antarctica is also the largest desert in the world, so people don't realize how dry it is. It's easy to get dehydrated. But yeah, that was pretty exciting. And it's 24-hour sunlight when you get there in the summertime. So yeah, that was pretty amazing to finally touch down on one of the most remote, continents on the planet.
What is it like to live through 24-hour sunlight? How is that?
I actually preferred the darkness. At first, I was worried about that for my winter, but I realized I liked that better. But for example, if you get up to use the restroom in the middle of the night and you don't have your windows blocked out and you go out in a hallway, it's bright outside too. So it just takes a little bit of getting used to. But like anything, you just have to get used to it. But it's nice too if you're outside taking a walk in the evening, when it's not freezing cold and windy. It is nice to have some extra daylight. And then this was once I landed in McMurdo, I was there a couple days, and then you get on an LC-130 that has skis, and that's about a 3-hour flight from McMurdo to South Pole. And at that point, your elevation goes from sea level to about 9,200 feet physical, and then barometric pressure can get a little over 11,000 feet. So South Pole, so this is me on a much smaller plane. I believe so. I'm just trying to remember. But yeah, so that's a little bit of a different plane, much smaller. I do like the LC-130. And you have skis when you land at South Pole, because we don't have a lot of distance for the planes to take off and land. And an LC-130 doesn't need a lot of space. And it does have a lot smaller group of people that will transport. So that is me in my parka. That's part of our extreme cold weather gear. And so, yeah, you're still required to have your regular clothing underneath and then your parka. That is my big red. I like those parkas. They're Canada Goose. Anybody can buy one. They're not cheap. Obviously, government issue clothing. And then I like the hoodie. You can put it up when you want to take a nap on the plane and nice and toasty because it does get a little bit cold, when you're traveling. But yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. Very bulky, not very flattering, but it is a comfortable outfit if you want
Is
to keep
this
warm.
plane heated and
Yep.
pressurized?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it is
Okay.
heated and pressurized, but yeah, it's still a little bit drafty. And obviously they want you to be prepared once you land. They open up the back, the bags come out, and then the cold hits you pretty heavily, even more so when you get to South Pole. So it definitely wakes you up a little bit when you arrive. And then of course you're arriving at like 9,200 feet. And then depending on the barometric pressure, it can be a little bit more. So obviously I adjusted a little bit better because, obviously I'm living
How
about
right of
5,200 feet. I know
Yeah.
the mountains a lot too, but, it can be difficult for certain people to adjust because of the altitude.
Well, even going from 5,200 feet up to 10,000 is a big
Yeah.
difference.
Trail Ridge Road, you guys know it can kind of kick your butt if you're not, prepared. And even if you are, you can still get altitude sickness even later on. So you just never know. So hydration's important. Obviously, that's a big thing, but it takes time to just acclimate once you get to pole.
Amazing.
And then this is a twin otter. That was not the plane we came in on. This happened, this was part of a fueling. So South Pole, there's about 54 countries that are part of the Antarctic Treaty of 1957. And so there's a number of research stations that open up their year round. And so this was, I believe, in the summertime when some of the other countries might be passing through to refuel. I know Vostok is a Russian station. If you look on a map, we have lots of neighbors that may borrow and stop over for fuel. So I believe that was one of the moments that somebody had stopped for fuel. And this is one of the aircraft that's some of our fuel team fueling up a plane. So a little bit cold to fuel a plane in Antarctica, and you can't imagine what that cost might be to fill up a plane. But it's just a pretty cool experience just to kind of see it happening. And, they obviously don't want the planes to be idling too long. They could freeze to the skiway. So, you try to keep things moving as quickly and safely as possible.
It's an amazing picture. Did you take this photograph?
Yes. Yep. So that was not the plane. Again, I think that's I can't remember if that's a twin otter. Again, it's been a while since I've supported the program, but it's a pretty amazing plane. I just love planes in general. But
Yeah.
yeah, so we have a crew that's trained that can come in and fuel planes quickly. They have a log that they track everything to, and then they get on their way. Obviously, this happens in the summer, not during winter, because there's no planes coming or going for that 9-month period of time. So this is just me taking pictures on the way to South Pole. Picture of the Transantarctic mountain range, which is pretty amazing. It's so exciting when you get to actually see what Antarctica looks like. You read about it, you see it on maps, but to actually see it, it is a very beautiful continent. I haven't really explored much more than just McMurdo, South Pole. There's lots to see on the Western Peninsula too. We have Palmer Station, a U.S. station on the Western Peninsula. There's cruise ships that go, not very cheap to get to Antarctica, but it actually looks like there's some just beautiful, areas to see and wildlife. But nothing lives at South Pole. We're not meant to live there either, but there's no open water. There's no, animals, penguins, nothing like that.
It's so beautiful. That is such a
It is
cool
very
picture.
pristine, very pretty.
Mhm.
Yes, and you're reminded all the time that Mother Nature, we're not meant to be there, and you have to just be very, mindful of that and respect Mother Nature, because
Absolutely.
you can definitely get yourself in trouble if you're not being smart.
Yeah, easily, I'm sure.
Conditions are just so extreme. Yeah.
Yes, the wind is not great. So this is just fast forward. This is towards the end of my winter in 2011. So winter started, I believe, maybe around February 12th, 2011. That would have been around the last time the last plane leaves with the rest of the summer crew. And then left behind, there were 49 of us, including a station manager, that were there for 9 months. So you're not coming or going, even if you have a death in the family, a medical emergency, which we did. We had an emergency appendectomy July of that year. So obviously no planes were coming or going. We know that when we sign up. We also had one of the gentlemen that I wintered with, his daughter unfortunately was murdered in, I believe, May of our winter. So that was a terrible situation. He couldn't leave until, I believe, October 7th timeframe. So that was a very tough situation to be in when you feel pretty helpless. But you know that when you are signing up for this adventure, that anything can happen. And you also have to trust every single person on your team. So we had to go through the fire school. I went to the fire academy for a week training before I left in Aurora. And then we all divided up into 4 teams as part of our emergency response team. We had our first responder was team 1, logistics team 2, fire brigade team 2, logistics team 3, medical team 4. So we would have weekly meetings and drills. We would have monthly drills. We all had to carry LMR hand radios. Obviously, our cell phones don't work there. So everybody carries a handheld radio. So if anything happens, we are all switched to a certain channel. I was on team 1, first responder. So again, we have to do training because, we don't have the local fire department coming or the ambulance or Flight for Life. So we really have to take it very seriously when we're there. If you're on call, for example, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol. We have had emergencies that might happen at 2 a.m. And so again, you have to really be fit for duty. You have to take it very seriously, that you have to trust and rely on each other in your team. And I think that's part of why I enjoyed wintering at South Pole, because I do like to be part of a community. Yes, there were definitely interpersonal challenges, but at the same time, I think that there were more positive that outweighed the negative. And so, yeah, it was a pretty amazing experience. I still think it's a privilege to have been, selected to winter. Not many people can say they've wintered. So to me, it's a privilege to be part of a team. I'd love to go back someday. It's all about timing. But yeah, it's just great to be part of building a community and having lifelong friendships, which I do. But yeah, that's just kind of it in a nutshell of why it is such a special place.
That sounds so cool. And that's, you're the only person I know that's been down there. And what a great experience to have. Wow.
It was
Um,
fun. I mean, there was definitely some challenges too.
mhm.
I know my first night that I stayed there, I literally had a moment where I'm never claustrophobic, but that was the only time I was actually claustrophobic in my entire life.
Wow.
Wondering, did I make a mistake? I don't know if I can stay here for 9 months. Like, what am I going to do? And then that quickly passed the next day. I got acclimated into my team, my community. And I loved winter. It was hard to even know to go home because, you miss your friends. But, it is such one of those things that not many people can relate unless you've done it yourself. And everybody develops, you learn personally about yourself, maybe good and bad. It's also a great way to get in shape. We had hobbies. We would have movie nights. We did a lot of creative projects, a lot of creative people. We have a greenhouse. We do hydroponics. So people are creative. I think our first night there, the tradition is that you watch The Thing in the gymnasium. And then midwinter, fast forward to June, the tradition was, I don't know if they still do it, is watching The Shining. So we have a little bit of dark humor. But yeah, so there's just a lot of amazing traditions, a lot of talented people. You get
I
to
love
meet
that.
people from all over the world.
Mhm.
So yeah, I've met some amazing friends that I still keep in touch with, some that I wish I could, keep more in touch with. I need to make more of an effort, but yeah, it is actually pretty amazing to have that sort of experience that I can share with other people.
That is really cool. Would you tell us a little bit more about the emergency appendectomy?
Yep.
That sounds
So that
scary.
happened in July. I happened to be in the doctor's office. I was just visiting Dr. Barton at the time. I believe he was our oldest male to ever winter. He was 72 at the time. And so I just happened to walk by the clinic and he was in there and I just started visiting. And so he and I were just kind of visiting and he happened to mention, oh, I'm kind of bored. Nothing hasn't happened. And I think he said something along the lines of, oh, I'm surprised we haven't had somebody that needs an appendectomy, something along those lines. And then a couple of days later, our youngest person on station, 26 years old, actually needed an emergency appendectomy. So what would have normally been an easy procedure, relatively speaking, turned out to be a 4-hour ordeal. So we had to coordinate with our team 4, our medical team, and it was very, touch and go. The whole station was obviously very nervous. We also had to work with NASA to, help get the satellite so we could use the satellite. Then we had an anesthesiologist on video conference to help monitor the situation. And so after 4 hours, everything turned out fine, thankfully. And then after that, a lot of us would volunteer every 2-hour increment shifts to give the docs and the doctor and the PA a break until our youngest team member was recovered. And he recovered just fine. So the joke was we have 49 people on station and now an appendix. So it was in a jar and then it was shipped off to a lab when we had, we were able to fly home. But yeah, so that was the silver lining. But yeah, we were definitely a little bit nervous for
I bet.
his safety and well-being, because obviously anything can go wrong. But luckily, as luck would have it, Dr. Borden is a surgeon, so we don't always get a surgeon. And he started his career in Vietnam, and he had gone through, I don't know, thousands probably of appendectomies, and he said that was one of his most challenging ones. So go figure. But at least the stars align where we had his excellent training and background. And then our PA at the time, she was amazing, remarkable, her character, and, she just kept things very steady too. So it
That's
definitely
really
tested us as a community. And even if people were fighting, that is actually the moment that it brings people together.
I thought I remembered that you actually helped with that surgery a little bit too.
I did not, and it's probably a good thing I passed out in our blood unit in 6th grade, so I was not part of that team. So I was waiting in our pool table room. We were all kind of gathering, just kind of waiting for the good news that he would be okay. So no, I definitely was not part of that team. They don't need 2 victims. But yeah, we had some very capable people helping out as well. But I did help. I took a 2-hour shift, at least when he was recovering, to help him in case he woke up. So that's the part where I did volunteer just for that piece. Thank you.
So,
And I help just in the clinic. I maintain my status as a first responder, so I don't have to deal with blood. So I'm glad we had a happy ending, and yeah,
Mhm.
that was definitely a memorable experience for sure.
Yeah, thank goodness for everybody that was there. I'm glad everything turned out well.
Yeah, we are
Um,
too. Absolutely.
yeah, I bet. What did you miss most when you were down there?
So obviously I miss my family. My mom would call a lot. We had to rely on, so we use satellites there. So we have,
Hmm.
old DoD satellites. So our connectivity, we have to wait until the satellites come up during the day or evening. So we follow a satellite schedule. And so when the satellite's not up, there's a way to get a hold of us if there is an emergency only situation. So we have
Hmm.
an Iridium phone. But other than that, you can't use the internet or people can't call you or you can't call out until the satellite passes are up. So on our intranet, we have we have a couple satellites that you get to see when the schedule is coming. And so everybody's days kind of revolve around when the satellites are up so you can, connect with loved ones back home. But I also kind of like just having not being tied to a cell phone, just being able to, appreciate your surroundings, reading, renting shows. I think I watched Dexter and some really old programs, Twin Peaks. We had some fun Sunday night movie thons, and you're creative. We do some dance, parties, 80s dance parties. So you definitely try to be creative and not rely on television, live TV. Sometimes it's nice not to know what's happening in the news. And so, people do tend to connect more when you are not connected to your phone and social media. So that's probably the part I liked the most. But yeah, of course, I miss my family. I was, of course, worried if anybody would pass away, that I would be stuck. And so that was always a concern. But we know that does happen. That is a risk that you take. And also with your health, as I explained two examples, those things are out of your control, but you just have to have faith. And this is an adventure, and you're kind of taking a leap of faith.
So I'm looking at this picture here and I'm noticing that you are one of very few females in this group.
Yes,
What was that like?
I think there
How
were
many
like
females were
13
there?
females. I believe 13, but at the time, we have a historian. He's a volunteer historian, Bill. So he keeps track of all the statistics for South Pole. So I believe in 2011, according to his statistics, I was female 177. So whatever that means to anybody else, I just thought that was kind of exciting just to know, wow, not a very big group of people, of females, I should say, but just men also. Still a pretty remarkable experience. And just people from other countries, the NSF hires, we have grantees that are from other countries. The whole purpose of us being in Antarctica is to support the National Science Foundation. So there's a number of scientific research um, experiments that happen, year round. So it is pretty remarkable the type of science that we study. Obviously, South Pole, certain conditions, you don't have light pollution. We have a clean air sector managed by NOAA. So South Pole Telescope. So there's a number of different projects, neutrinos detectors. So again, I am not a scientist, but it is, it makes you definitely appreciate all the research that goes into it and all the scientists and grantees that study this. And then they would also do science briefings in the wintertime and summer to kind of share with the community some of the findings, of all the different amazing research that happened. So, our team, my company, was a subcontractor to the National Science Foundation. So my company would support like the operations and maintenance, basically an O&M contract, basically to make sure the lights are on, the station's running. We have two power plants. We have an emergency power plant upstairs, and then our regular power plant is underground where we have sort of ice tunnels, and we operate on Caterpillar generators. And in the summertime, we have about three traverses of fuel that travel from McMurdo to South Pole, and it takes about 30 days or less for each traverse during the austral summer. They carry a fuel bladder with tractors, and each fuel bladder carries approximately 100,000 gallons of fuel on a sled. So that's really important. All of that fuel comes over from Port Hueneme, California every January onto a vessel that gets offloaded at South Pole or in McMurdo Station. And then those critical supplies get traversed through, a caravan of people. And so we take about 300,000 gallons of fuel per year at the station. And then we have fuel tanks. And so our generators, I believe we burn about 480 some thousand gallons of fuel during the summer. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the National Science Foundation. Obviously, those numbers from a very long time ago. I've not been in the program for a very long time, since 2022. So I just want to preface by saying there's some approximate numbers there as well. This happened to be towards the end of my winter. I was out at one of the science stations, and I just came outside for a quick picture. I left my jacket inside. And I remember this picture specifically because it was so cold with the wind that literally when I smiled, I've never been so cold where my teeth actually hurt. So this is the picture that I distinctively remember. I was like, how in the world can it be so cold that your teeth are cold? So this picture is something that will be cemented in my brain of how cold it was.
I
And
bet.
obviously you know, you want to wear gloves. You don't even want to have your pinky exposed. I did get frostbite very briefly, but you remind yourself very quickly, you know, when you're touching metal objects. And then that's a big freezer door. There's no locks to get in and out. So, you know, obviously you want to be very careful. You don't want to get locked out or something jammed. But yeah, you definitely have to be very mindful of of Mother Nature. You know, checking in with people when you're walking back to the station. You know, you have your handheld radios. You need an extra battery that you keep close to your heart, you know, your chest, so it doesn't freeze. So you just
Because you
take
could
certain
lose your
precautions.
battery.
Yes, so you
Um,
definitely do a
what was the
check-in if you're leaving the station walking because, you know, it's too cold to use snow machines. So we would just walk, you know, from the station. Our maintenance guys and gals would have to do rounds. So they would leave the station and make their rounds to different outbuildings to make sure the boilers are running, to do checks every day, you know, because obviously if we lose heat in some of the buildings that have servers, it's not going to take long for those buildings to freeze up when it can be minus 100. So my coldest was minus 100 in May that year. And so again, if it's not super windy, it's not bad, but when the wind gets bad and the knocks, you know, it's pretty miserable. It's pretty hard to breathe sometimes. But anyways, a couple times I would volunteer to do rounds outside with the team if they're going into different buildings, you know, and then you go inside, you know, to get warm, do your readings, and then make your continued rounds outside the station and all over. So rounds are super important because obviously we all need to survive. So if our building runs out of, you know, if we have a fire or, you know, our boilers go out or our generators, obviously that's a pretty big deal. So we want to make sure that we have a good maintenance crew to make sure everything looks good. There's no leaks. There's no fires. So maintenance is ultra important. So yeah, this
these are
is
the buildings that you're talking about, so I
yeah.
wanted to show the
Oh, yeah. So
buildings.
this is not our science buildings. These are just some of the buildings that, you know, might house dorms in the summertime. Some of our James Way tents that we don't really use anymore. But you can just see the drifting has been happening a lot over the years. So in some cases, the buildings might get buried. And so Mother Nature, again, is not kind. It's very windy at the South Pole. So the elevated station was built up. I don't have a picture of it, but you can go on the internet. There's some great documentaries of how the station was built. But it's built on stilts, so the idea is to allow enough wind to come and clear the snow around it. But again, Mother Nature is winning, and it's very hard to keep the snow removal happening. That happens only in the summertime. So we have an excellent group of heavy equipment operators that go out and try to push the snow and keep up with the drifting. But Mother Nature will win, and everything shifts from year to year too. So the 90 degrees South Pole marker will shift every year too. So things are shifting, lots of wind, lots of snow, but this just shows you some of the drifting. And again, by now, I don't know what these buildings look like now. That this was a long time ago, but we have a crew that's active in the summertime that is responsible for snow removal, which is a huge effort. And you know, you eventually run out of places where you keep trying to push the snow.
I
Right.
bet. Do you
I'm going to
happen
go
to
back to
know?
this
Oh, go
this other
ahead.
picture. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this picture? I see
No,
your
that
little
was
eyes poking out.
yeah, so that was towards the beginning of the end of winter and the sun starting to come up. And so I was trying to get out more. One of the days, I don't think this was the day, but there were probably a team of 4 or 5 of us. It was too cold to use some of the, you know, snow machines, but we had these bamboo flags that we wanted to place on the skiway. So that way, when it was summertime to start receiving flights, that we needed to have flags to flag the skiway again because the drifting. And so one of those days, I don't know if this was that day, several of us went out. We had a sled that we tied around ourselves to pull these bamboo flags. And then we had drills and extra battery packs. And so we were working outside at minus 94. for
Oh,
a few hours, and we'd come into nearby buildings to kind of get warmth. But one of my good friends, he was with me. We had a great time, but it was definitely probably my most miserable experience of being so tired when you're out in that type of environment. You're moving, but you just burn a lot of calories when you're cold. You're still protected, but your legs and arms start to feel like iron and you're feeling weighted down and tired and fatigued. But, we did have nearby buildings to go in for heat, but this was one of the days that it was so cold that glasses don't work, goggles don't work because they can fog up. So um, my safety guy let me, use it's like a Carmex that you put on your lips, but you can put it on your eyelids instead, or eyelashes, because my eyelashes sometimes would freeze up. And so it can be kind of hard to see. And so I just made sort of a quick or a very small opening that I could see out because of the wind and the cold. But yeah, that was just one of the days to get out and help. You want to get out. I mean, I did. I like to be able to get out, get some fresh air and exercise. But yeah, this was just one of those days as the sun's starting to come up. We can look forward to leaving, going back to our families or traveling, what I did in my case. But yeah, this just happened to be a very cold and windy day. Yep. And then this fast forward, after my 9 months of winter, my brother Patrick flew out to New Zealand and he met me. He loves to fly fish, so he hired a private guide. And then I met him after I was done with my winter and he was done fly fishing. And then we met up in Christchurch, rented a car, and drove around the South Island for, I think, 9 or 10 days. So that was super fun. So this is me in Queenstown enjoying a delicious glass of New Zealand wine, which are now my favorite wines. But this is sort of, there's life at the end of 9 months. And I'm sure I was extremely pale by then because, we don't see sunlight or much often, so it's nice to be able to experience, flowers, soil, just
Humidity.
other humidity. So that was really fun. And of course, my wine. I love my wine. But New Zealand, a big shout out if you've never been. It is a beautiful country. It's a great place to travel. If everybody, if you ever get the chance, I highly recommend it.
I'd love to
Awesome.
go there. It's beautiful.
And
Where we
then
can.
this is just along my brother and I can't remember where this was specifically, but again, just amazing beautiful scenery along the shoreline. We were just able to travel and go to some beautiful places, do a little bit of hiking, see some dolphins along the way too. But I think Otagua, I can't remember, I have it in my diary, but it was just nice to be able to again see water, greenery, grass, new scenery. And also, it's a great place to save money at South Pole. Not a lot of places, or not a lot
Oh,
of shopping to do. So I highly recommend it if anybody's looking for a pretty cool opportunity. You can save money and to travel afterwards, which is a bonus as well. And
oh,
then
that's so
again, just
gorgeous.
some beautiful water. I just love that part of New Zealand. There's just great fishing, hiking, outdoors, good time of year.
Mm.
This
That
must
would have
have
been
been a
November.
remarkable change of scenery after seeing
And
nothing but
yes,
snow for like
it
9 months to
was.
come out here and be like, ah, blue
Absolutely.
water,
Mm.
Yes.
sunshine, green grass. Oh my gosh, you must have just been so
Yeah,
overjoyed to.
and going to a grocery store, getting to pick things.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fun. And then, of course, driving on the other side of the road. My brother was my chauffeur. I've driven since then on the other side of the road, but it is just, part of being submerged in a different culture, scenery. The people are amazing. I have some excellent friends that are Kiwis that live there in Christchurch, so it's a great place to visit.
Awesome. Tori, let's go to Christchurch. We have
You
cousins in
guys should.
Christchurch.
We highly recommend it.
Love to.
Here's a beautiful waterfall.
Yep. So again, I can't remember which location, Milford Sound, I believe. My brother and I were on a boat, and then we had, the dolphins swimming next to our boat. So that was actually pretty fun. A little bit rainy that day, but the food's great, lots of seafood. Just excellent overall. I couldn't say enough great things of something to look forward to after 9 months.
That's so incredible. So What's up with this picture?
So now fast forward. So my last time in Antarctica, I believe, was 2018, and I used to go um, once a year for about 4 or 5 years to New Zealand to help with orientations. But I left that program to support the Antarctic support contract. I left that in February 2022. I just decided I was ready to do something different. I stayed with the same company. And then at that time, I transitioned to support our embassies in Moscow and Beijing, lots of embassies in China, and in our NATO facility in Brussels, and then an air base in Iwakuni, Japan. And then those contracts, our Moscow Beijing contract, that was awarded to another company. And then I ended up transitioning over to support Iraq full time with my manager, who I have a great manager. She's from Kenya. And so I had the opportunity in December of last year to go to Iraq. I'd never been to the Middle East. And so it was such a great experience. So this is me getting ready to board the charter flight in Amman, Jordan. So I had to go through Frankfurt, Germany from Denver, and then fast forward. This is me. Obviously, photography. They're very strict about security of outside in certain buildings. But this is just me. Once I landed in Baghdad, I landed at one of our facility, which is near the Baghdad International Airport, the BIAP, which we share the same runway as Iraqis do. But obviously, on my side of the runway, we have, fences, barricades, and cement tri walls, and security and protection for our safety. So we sort of share the same space. So this is me landing in one of our facilities in Baghdad, having to put on my personal protective equipment, and then boarding a Black Hawk helicopter to fly over downtown Baghdad, which was pretty cool, which is about a 10-minute flight or 30-minute drive if you do ground transportation, which I'll probably do when I hopefully go back in November. But yeah, that was the first time I've ever been on a Black Hawk helicopter. Super exciting. And then you get to fly over Baghdad. And I got to fly 4 times back and forth, and also during evening. So I got to see Baghdad. It actually looks like, Las Vegas, certain parts, when you have, casinos, hotels, it's moving, booming city. Unfortunately, Baghdad gets a bad rap for obvious reasons. But there's some lovely people, great people that I work closely with, local Iraqi nationals. So, yep, fast forward my 10-minute flight from the Baghdad Diplomatic Service Center over to the Baghdad Embassy compound we call the Beck. And so that's where I spent 6 weeks at the embassy, U.S. Embassy, which was an amazing experience. And I work with some great HR folks. Overall, we have people that we hire from 29 different countries that work there at the 3 locations that we have in Baghdad that I support. And this is me at one of our locations across the highway from the embassy. This is at one of our facilities called Union 3. This is a NATO facility as well. So that was one of my pictures I snapped while I was there. But you really do get a sense of such an international community. Obviously, when you talk about diversity, I've never worked where I've had 29 different countries represented, working closely with local Iraqi nationals, which I work every day with as well. And then at this facility, when you go to the cafeteria or the dining facility or the DFAC, you have NATO forces that have their bands on from Spain or Italy, and they're sitting there, with their weapons at lunch. But yeah, that we're all there still it's a peacekeeping mission. There's no military, it's not a military base at the embassy compound. Yes, we are protected, but we're really there to have a presence in the Middle East. In my company, the State Department is our customer. I work for a subcontractor, and my team is responsible for the operations and maintenance, keeping things running, our power plant. We also have Baghdad Life Support Services, where we are responsible for mail, firefighters, cafeteria, food services, maintaining fuel. So it is a very collaborative effort. We work with lots of different agencies, the US government included. I know at the embassy compound, there could be people from the FBI, intelligence community, security forces. We have private security teams there from different countries that patrol. So yeah, it's pretty amazing experience. So I'm hoping to get back there. I was supposed to leave June 29th to be coming back this week, but unfortunately, the State Department put us into an order of departure on June 12th. So for security reasons in the Middle East, obviously conflict with Israel and Iran, we were ordered to stand down. So I did not travel. We also had an order of departure at that time for certain personnel that were ordered to be removed for safety reasons. So now everybody's back in full swing. Obviously, we still have to maintain a very strict security posture, lots of drills, lots of reminders, not to take anything for granted. You know, you just have to be aware, and we have very strict protocols, which are excellent. It is good to have. So I'm hoping to go and be there for Halloween through Thanksgiving. So that's kind of my plan, is to get back there while my visa is still good. But yes, it's been an excellent experience. It's very different going from the ice box in Antarctica to now the sandbox, as they say, you know, in the Middle East. So we do have
I bet.
people that have worked with both locations. So it is a small world, but you know, again, it is still a privilege. I do feel that it is a blessing that I've had the opportunities I've had. I also feel it's all about timing. And so that's just one of the things I've been fortunate to have, that sometimes you're just there at the right time, or connections.
What is your dream trip?
So I was planning on going to Victoria Falls for my 50th this year, the end of September. That had always been on my list probably for the last 10 years, to go to Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe and Zambia. I've met a lot of new friends now that are from Uganda, Kenya, and all over Africa. So my goal would be to plan a trip at some point where I can try to coordinate with my new friends, my boss included. She lives here in the States, but I definitely want to get back to where I can actually visit people that I've met. But yeah, Victoria Falls would be on my list, and then eventually making my way to Kenya and different parts of the continent. But
Tori and I wanted to go to Mexico for our birthday, but then we decided to take a 6,000-mile road trip instead. So
you live
we're
six
thinking
times
our
way
birthday is
better.
probably going to be at Casa Velveeta this year. So if you
Yes,
if you have any
I will
plans,
meet you there.
Casa Bonita.
If you're in town.
I've not been there since they reopened it, so that would be
Neither
a
have
great.
I.
We're dying to go though. We
Yeah.
want to go check
Yes,
it
well,
out.
sign me up too. I'd love to
Oh,
go.
yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. What
Oh, hey,
about, do you have a favorite road trip song that you like to belt out to when you're driving?
I love just having playlists. You know, I also like
Mhm.
classic country, so I like to just have a mix of good songs. I love good 80s mix. You know, you guys probably have some good playlists.
Yeah.
who's
Oh,
your favorite travel buddy, Shannon? Who do you like to go on trips with?
I mean, I've been really fortunate. One of my, obviously, Charmin, we went to Spain together. Now we're going to go to England end of September. One of my friends also who's coming with me to England. She's somebody I met at South Pole. Uh, she and I have been to Scotland, you know, before. We traveled really well together and through New Zealand. And so I've just been fortunate to find people.
yeah.
And I know you guys,
Agreed.
obviously,
You know what that's like.
it's a long trip, but you guys survived and you're still friends. So that's amazing.
Yes. That's the key. We're still friends.
We're still friends. Yes,
That
ma'am.
is one way to
Better friends than
solidify
ever.
your friendship.
Absolutely. Better friends than ever. We've been friends
That's
for
right.
44 years
Since
and we're not
kindergarten.
about to stop now. Since
Yeah.
So, would you guys be willing to do a best friends travel episode with us sometime?
Yeah, maybe after the trip in
Absolutely.
England, if we're still talking to each other. I'm kidding. But yes, we can definitely do that as well. And I think what you guys are doing is pretty awesome. And I love that you guys are still connected despite living in different states. I think that's pretty awesome.
I'm lucky that, I've been able to keep tearing around for this long.
I'm incredibly grateful for all of the work that you've done. The going to the Antarctica, the um, time in Iraq. An American going to Iraq to solve problems of any kind right now
So
is
let
so
me just
appreciated.
preface by saying my job's easy. I feel like I was at, the Ritz-Carlton compared to, 10 years ago. What was happening over there was pretty dangerous, very sad. A lot of lives were lost on both sides. Horrible tragedy. Won't get into it, but obviously I have zero sacrifice for me to be there, but just all the people that have served and lost their lives, now that I've been in this program, going back and rereading things that have happened, it's kind of crazy. It puts it into perspective for sure.
Yeah, I bet. You have done so much though. You've done a lot of traveling, whether it be with your job or on your own, and it's so neat to hear your stories. It really is. You've lived a
Thank
very
you.
fascinating life.
Yeah, thank you so much for
You
joining
too,
us on this
ladies.
podcast today. Thank you for letting us interview you. Thank you for telling us all about your stories. I am so inspired, and I just am so honored to know you. I'm honored
Oh,
to
thank you.
be
Same to
friends.
you.
Too. I'm so glad we were able to. Yeah,
Well,
I thank you as well for everything you've done, including this podcast. You're a very fascinating person, and I'm so happy to know you. And I'm glad we were able to reconnect. And yeah, I just wish you the best, and I can't wait to hear your next adventure too. What is a charity that you would like us to plug for you?
so I like to donate to wounded warriors, and I love our military, our men and women that serve. Those are the true heroes. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Wounded Warriors is just a good organization. It obviously helps families for anybody that's been injured or passed away, serving their country. So that's just something that I feel is very important, and just even helping out with your local veterans.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Lace.
Shannon, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for
Thank
telling us
you.
your stories. It's been so awesome to hear all of that. And we so look forward to hearing your new adventures, whatever you're up to next. I want to hear more about Baghdad and whatever the world brings you the next couple years. And
Happy travels, everyone.
happy travels indeed. Take care.
Thank you, ladies.